Hi everyone, today I'm joined by my colleague David Robinson, and we are going to talk about the difference between an enterprise service bus and an event-driven architecture. Why are we doing this? Well, if you look at them on a conceptual diagram, they look really similar. And they do similar things, you can say, but there are noticeably different concepts. So let's start with this. So, broadly speaking, what do we expect from an enterprise service bus? And then what do we expect from an event-driven architecture?
Yeah. Just firstly, I think where some people confuse an enterprise service bus is the platform. Some people think an enterprise service bus is only really an all-premises type approach, but it still applies to many modern cloud solutions.
And this is because a lot of products like this talk, IBM WebSphere, used to sell themselves as
ESBs.
That you're buying an ESB in a box.
But they're very much still an applicable architectural approach as well. So
because enterprise service bus is actually an architectural pattern.
Yeah, and
it's not a product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what do you get from an enterprise service bus? Well, primarily it's pub sub.
Yeah.
So you're delivering messages, and you're delivering messages to a list of subscribers. There's no way of allowing messages to build up, so it's very much a transient storage whereby messages pass through. Unlike an event-driven architecture whereby messages build up, and new subscribers can come along at any point and say, I want to take a copy of all the messages you've had up to a previous point, and that's for them to define. So it's more of a data store than a transient data store like an enterprise service bus.
And this is where underpinning something like an event-driven architecture, this is where you've got things like Kafka, or an event hub that's actually a stream.
Yeah.
So when you have an event that gets appended to the end of an event stream, and then the subscribers will have a pointer onto that stream, and they can just read forward.
But also, you talk about event hubs, but you can also use event grids as well in an enterprise service bus approach. So if you're talking about events, you've got event hubs for event-driven architecture, but then you've got event grid where you can do pub sub as well.
So in terms of Azure, you've got service bus, event grid, and event hub. And there's a lot of confusion about where each of those fits. So service bus definitely fits very much into the enterprise service bus. Funnily enough, hence the name, because that really manages your pub sub and it manages queuing. But once the message is gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
Event hubs are a bit like Kafka. They're an event stream. So you have got that. It's like a database that, there's rules as to how, when that stream will roll over. But you've got a pointer on it, and each consumer has its own pointer and can be at different places. And then event grid probably fits a little bit more towards the left because once those events are read, they are consumed.
Yeah, they are consumed, and again with event grid, it's a pub sub approach, so you can't suddenly come along later and say, I want a copy of all of those messages.
Yeah, and is there anything in that to do with the responsibility for managing that subscription? Because obviously in an event-driven architecture, when you've got an event stream, it's the consumer that's responsible for pointing, whereas is there anything to do with the responsibility for resolving those subscriptions that kind of...
The responsibility of an enterprise service bus, when you deploy an enterprise service bus, you obviously have to know who's going to subscribe to it at the time, so it's the responsibility of the project to create those subscriptions, whereas when it's in the event-driven architecture, anyone can subscribe and so on. So,
there you have it. Differences between an enterprise service bus, where at design time you know who's subscribing, and then they get the messages and then they're gone, versus an event-driven architecture where you're building an event stream that's like a database of events, and then you can add subscribers later who can then go back and look at that history and read them.
The other thing as well to compare on the two is messages versus events, and that's quite a blurry boundary sometimes.
Because an event can include business data with it.
Exactly.
Whereas a message is
I want to do something, you need to do something. Whereas an event is something has happened.
Yeah, an event is something has happened.
Yeah.
So it's so this is almost more like a command.
Yeah.
And then this is a notification that something's happened.
Yeah.
but they can. It's very, very blurry, that difference, and it can confuse a lot of people
Yeah.
in terms of how it looks, because the data that goes onto each of those can look really, really similar.
Yeah.
But conceptually, enterprise service bus do this. Event-driven architecture. This has just happened.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you.
And we'll wrap up there. Thanks, everyone.